pick it up there. The lawyer for Christine Blasey Ford, the woman who has accused Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh of sexual assault more than 3 decades ago, has called the Republican plan for Monday's Senate hearing not a fair or good faith investigation. In a statement, her attorney Lisa Banks writes, Ford continues to believe that a full nonpartisan investigation of this matter is needed, and she's willing to cooperate with the committee. However, the committee's stated plan to move forward with a hearing that has only 2 witnesses is not a fair or good faith investigation. There are multiple witnesses whose names have appeared publicly and should be included in any proceeding. The rush to a hearing is unnecessary and contrary to the committee discovering the truth. A spokesperson for the Senate Judiciary Committee tells The Hill that Chairman Chuck Grassley is willing to send committee staff to California to speak with Ford to hear her story. However, Grassley has informed lawyers for Ford that if she wishes to testify on Monday, Ford must provide the committee with prepared testimony by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Senator Susan Collins, a key undecided vote on Kavanaugh, voiced her hopes that Ford will testify.
I don't think she can reject, having made all of these serious allegations, I don't think that she can reject all those options, because otherwise there are these very serious allegations hanging over the head of a nominee who has emphatically denied them. And that's just not a good way for us to end. So I think she needs to come forward, and I think we need to provide her with any protection that she may ask for herself and her family.
That's Senator Susan Collins. Senator Lindsey Graham, another Republican, pushed back against Ford's calls for an investigation into her allegation against Kavanaugh. Graham tweeting, requiring an FBI investigation of a 36-year-old allegation without specific references or time or location before Professor Ford will appear before the Judiciary Committee is not about finding the truth, but delaying the process till after the midterms. It is imperative, he goes on, the Judiciary Committee move forward on the Kavanaugh nomination and a committee vote be taken ASAP. So, Joe, we're at a stalemate here. Republicans on the Judiciary Committee say we're bending over backwards. Ms. Ford, you can testify publicly, you can testify privately. We'll send people to California. It doesn't have to be senators asking the questions. And she and her attorney are saying, I'm not going into a kangaroo court. I want an FBI investigation.
Well, it's interesting that Lindsey Graham is saying that it's imperative that we rush this process. It's imperative that we take the vote on Monday, when Lindsey Graham and Chuck Grassley and the entire Republican Senate sat on Merrick Garland's nomination for, I think, 293 days. Yep. I do understand, though, Casey Hunt, they're concerned that there are some Democrats who are just trying to stall this. And any Democrat, or if anybody who claims that this isn't in the back of the minds of Democrats, are they're just not honest brokers. They're lying to themselves, if not lying to all of us. That said, there should be a middle ground. The FBI conducted an investigation during the Clarence Thomas hearings after the Anita Hill information came out. It took a couple of days. It's not like they're going to have to go to New Zealand to find people. Most of these people could be interviewed very quickly. It could be turned around in a couple of days. What is the problem with conducting a 2 or 3 day investigation, making sure that the facts are all before everybody, and then her testifying at the end of next week?
Well, some of my sources are suggesting that perhaps allowing an FBI investigation to go forward would potentially yield additional unsavory information about the nominee. Now, of course, you can probably guess where those sources may be leaning. But, Joe, I think one important thing to remember here is that so far, Dr. Blasey Ford hasn't actually said that she won't appear on Monday. Instead, we seem to be sort of one at a time talking about the issues that they have with how this is proceeding while that door remains open. Yesterday, we were talking about the investigation. At that statement that she put out last night focuses on the other witnesses, the other people that may have some information about this. We know that some of those people have seemed to briefly surface on social media. There are certainly a lot of conversations going on behind the scenes as people are trying to work out what else is out there, what other information may be out there. There's a lot of speculation and a lot of rumor that obviously we're not, trafficking in as we report out this story. But I do think you're seeing a pretty a clear strategy on the part of Dr. Ford. And I don't think that everyone has necessarily come to the conclusion that she won't actually appear on Monday. I do think that from a political perspective, that Monday deadline has become a line in the sand, because I do think for Susan Collins, she really went to the mat, and others, Jeff Flake, Bob Corker, to say to Republican leadership, you can't shove this behind closed doors. I mean, Mitch McConnell didn't want to kick this door open in the first place. And he, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, he seemed to be saying on the Senate floor that he wouldn't. By 6:30, having talked to other members of his conference, he had. So I think even from those people who really want to hear from her, they're not going to let this deadline slide.
Well, and you're right, Casey, and it's disingenuous when Democrats act like this was a bunch of good old boys getting behind closed doors saying, hey, we'll invite her and Kavanaugh on Monday, and then we'll trap her. Then we'll beat up. I mean, this was, and it's important to underline, for Susan Collins, for Bob Corker, for Jeff Flake, this was a pretty heavy push. Their Republican colleagues did not want that one-on-one showdown.
They're terrified. They're terrified of it. There's 11 men.
They were terrified at least they were terrified when the discussions first began. They're terrified now, and they are praying that Dr. Ford decides to stay away, because they know, and they have said, that the optics of these 11 men cross-examining Dr. Ford about what she says was sexual assault is a political nightmare that could actually swing the election this fall.
Well, and Dr. Ford holds all the cards right now. She has nothing to lose by continuing this waiting game until 9:59 a.m. tomorrow morning and drawing this out and, letting her lawyer have the leeway to negotiate the best possible terms for her potential appearance. So I still think there is a chance that she could surprise everyone tomorrow morning and say, I will go through with this. I will testify. But I don't think that that the back and forth overall of this is unsurprising when you look at how quickly this has evolved, and it's been just so badly mishandled by the Democrats. If they believe that she's a victim, then they have re-victimized their victim by their shoddy handling of the entire process and by introducing it at the 11th hour instead of letting this have the time that it deserved for true fact-finding about what actually happened.
And Elise, this is the second time now in modern American history that a woman who feels like she's been harassed sexually has gone to the Democratic Judiciary Committee, said, I want to give you this information, I want to remain anonymous, and this is the second time that information has gotten out. And what is so offensive about the way the Democrats outed Dr. Ford this time is they waited until their hearings were over. They waited until they basically put their finger up in the political winds, and they knew that Kavanaugh was going to pass. And then somebody on the Senate Judiciary Committee, or perhaps out of a Democratic congresswoman's office, said, well, it looks like he's going to pass. We're going to shove this lady out of the closet and basically identify her.
Well, and it does no favors to her to have this happen so quickly and to not have there be some kind of reasonable process. I guess I was shocked when I read Anita Hill's op-ed and realized, and I shouldn't have been surprised, that there still is no process on the Judiciary Committee for dealing with allegations of this sort. So many years later, there still has been no real improvement or system for managing this in a way that respects both the accuser and gives due process to the accused.
John Meacham, I had a conversation yesterday with former Senate Majority Leader George Mitchell, and the thing that there were so many elements to this story, as we all know, as we've been discussing today and yesterday, and we'll be discussing tomorrow. But the thing that struck Senator Mitchell was his deep, real, genuine disappointment in the fact that the United States Senate now, according to his view, is practically a non-functioning institution. It's so permanently divided. Your thoughts?
It's fascinating to hear Senator Mitchell say that. The Senate was supposed to be the saucer that cooled the milk, I think was Hamilton's phrase. They have 6-year terms because they were supposed to be one more step removed from the passions that the House of Representatives would represent. And as you say, it has become now more part of the problem than the solution. We can spend all day trying to figure out when that happened, at what point things began to fall apart. There are people who talk about Bill Frist campaigning against Tom Daschle, I think 20 years ago. People talk about Ted Kennedy's speech on Robert Bork. Any number of moments that could be kind of the Pearl Harbor of this. But the constitutional order in many ways depends on the Senate being able to be the grown-ups in the room. And I think Senator Mitchell is clearly onto something, advancing the argument that the Senate has become, in some ways, what the House became in the 80s and early 90s.
And Joe, one of the elements involved here that I don't think has been addressed adequately, you've got to put yourself, or at least if you try to put yourself in Judge Kavanaugh's shoes, with all of this going around him, with all of the things being uttered about him and Dr. Ford's assessment of what happened, or what is alleged to have happened 36 years ago, wouldn't you, if you were Judge Kavanaugh, want the FBI to do a background check? Wouldn't you want someone to step forward and say, no, this did not happen? Judge Kavanaugh did not participate in this. Wouldn't you want that to happen?
I would say bring in the FBI, bring in the DC, or bring in everybody that you can bring in, and investigate it. And that is, right now, it is interesting that we don't know what happened that night. Nobody knows what happened that night. What we do know, though, is you have Dr. Ford and Democrats saying, let's have the FBI do, in this case, what the FBI did in the Anita Hill, Clarence Thomas case, doing that. Yes, they've conducted background checks. This is new information. New information comes up after people have conducted background checks. What if we have this attitude, well, yeah, this guy from Somalia has come into the country 6 times. And he's had 6 background checks before, we let him into the country on a visa. But then we find out that there's a rumor that he was hanging around a criminal element that could cause danger to the country. Would you say, well, no, we're not going to look into that. We've already looked at it. We've already investigated him 6 times. That's it. This is new information. It may be false information, but if it's false information, then Judge Kavanaugh, yes, and the Republicans, if they really believe that Dr. Ford is such a liar, then bring the FBI in there. Lying under oath to the FBI, that is a crime. I'm not so sure that Dr. Ford would want to be, first of all, pushed out of the closet by the Democrats the way she was, and secondly, spend time in jail for lying to the FBI. And Willie, I think as we look at what's happened over the past week or two, for me, I've gone off Twitter, other than predicting the imminent collapse of the Red Sox and retweeting a couple of other people. I want people to know I am a Cassandra when it comes to Red Sox baseball. But it is so offensive for me, people I know on both sides, where you have people on the right calling Dr. Ford a liar, a fabulist, a political hack. We know she's lying. She knows she's lying. I mean, people that are fairly respected in their corner of the political world. And then you have people on the left who have basically acted as judge and jury of Kavanaugh, and basically saying the woman must be believed. He is a rapist. Men, shut up. He is a rapist. So both sides, people who have no idea are condemning Dr. Ford as a liar, condemning Judge Kavanaugh as a rapist. We need to do everything we can do to listen to them, but also if the FBI can ask a couple of questions, get a little additional information, I don't understand why that's a bad thing. And we could stop a lot of the hateful speculating on both sides.
Yeah, we live in a time in a political culture where everyone's made up his or her mind already, and they'll follow whatever trail takes them to their conclusion, the one they've already reached. I agree with you. We got to find out what happened one way or another. And frankly, if I were Chuck Grassley even, I understand their concerns about Democrats trying to run out the clock past the midterms. I would want the FBI to determine once or for all. If you believe that Judge Kavanaugh is innocent, as he said, that he didn't do this, that he wasn't at that kind of party, wouldn't you want to know that definitively? Because if they go through with some kind of a hearing on Monday, it's not conclusive. If Dr. Ford and Democrats think it's a sham, they push through, they vote, they put Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court. For the rest of time, as long as Judge Kavanaugh and then Justice Kavanaugh is on the Supreme Court, there will be an asterisk next to his name, and Democrats will question everything he ever does, every opinion he ever writes, every decision he ever makes, because of what's happening right now in front of us.
A lifetime appointment. And yes, there will be an asterisk next to his name because Republicans wouldn't wait another week to 10 days. We're still in September.
Yeah.
The Red Sox haven't been eliminated from the playoffs yet. So we still have a long way to go. You have 7 to 10 days. And if you're Grassley, you can say, okay, we're recommending the FBI get into this. They investigate it. This isn't the time frame that we wanted. We believe these allegations are not true. We stand by Judge Kavanaugh, but we're going to give it another week. We're going to ask the president to get the FBI involved, give us 3 or 4 days of an investigation, come back with the facts by the end of the week, and we will have the hearing the following Monday. We will vote the following Wednesday. That puts you into early October. I don't know what the harm is in that, especially John Meacham, when, I mean, that's October. You've got a month before the election, and doesn't that set Republicans like Susan Collins and independents like Lisa Murkowski in a much better position to say, we exhausted all means to get to the bottom of this? There was an FBI investigation that came back inconclusive. We had Kavanaugh and Ford on. And it was interesting, but at the end of the day, it was inconclusive, and I had to vote the way my constituents wanted me to vote, and we did everything we could do. Isn't that the best way to go?
Absolutely, and it seems to me the FBI investigation and the Senate actually discharging their constitutional duty to advise and consent. It's very hard to advise and consent when you don't know all the facts, or at least you haven't made a significant good faith effort to gather those facts. And so the real question particularly for Senate Republicans is the choice they're facing, it seems to me, is the quest for power, of having this justice on the court forever, more important than an obligation to seek the truth about one of the most complicated and emotional kinds of issues in American life, in human life. And it seems to me that you would want to exhaust every possibility to find out the truth. That's what the Senate is for, ideally.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.